5-0. Under Ordinance's third reading, Item 30, amending Title 11 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, Equal Opportunity, and Chapter 2.76 of the Code, the city's personnel rules and regulations to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Second. Seconded by Jean. Do you have any amendments?
We also have a motion to amend.
Would you like to make that?
I would like to make that. This amendment is just to add to the language regarding the religious exemption, more extensive religious exemption. It was requested by the Lincoln Diocese, and that's what this is about.
Second. Second by Jean for this amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, go ahead and call the roll.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Hornung?
Yes.
Schimmick?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Carroll?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
As much as I appreciate your applause for an amendment, I would ask that you hold your applause. Unfortunately, this is not a Coliseum, so this is a city council, so let's keep that to a minimum, please. So moving on to the actual agenda item. Any discussion on this item?
I would simply say that, thank you.
Go ahead.
We obviously had about 7 hours of testimony from multiple parties last week. We've individually and collectively received hundreds, maybe close to 1,000 emails if you put them all together, or letters or phone calls or conversations. We even created something of a YouTube sensation in the community as a result of that. Last week we heard discussion on moral grounds, those that felt their long-standing biblical holiness laws that prohibit homosexual behaviors, and there are others who testify from a biblical perspective about their understandings of God and humanity that are different. We heard scientific arguments. There were scientific arguments about trying to explain the science of human sexuality. We heard others who denied the science and asserted that sexuality is simply a matter of choice. The purpose of this ordinance is not to provide answers to questions of morality or science. First and foremost, what it is to provide protection against discrimination of a group of people who indicate they've experienced issues in Lincoln and are not currently protected by city, state, or federal law. This ordinance is intended to provide protection against discrimination in the areas of public accommodations, housing, and employment. And the bottom line of it is that prejudice and discrimination are never right in this community for any reason. Secondly, the ordinance is good for Lincoln and for Lincoln business. By passing this ordinance, we say that this community is a progressive community, that we're open for business to whomever chooses to come and shop here. This protection tells students and faculty who are considering coming to Lincoln for their education that we are a welcoming city, and it demonstrates to those who attend our universities and colleges that Lincoln is the kind of respectful community where they would like to live, work, play, and raise their families. For those reasons, I'm supporting and encouraging this ordinance.
Yeah, I would just like to second what Carl said and say that in addition to that, I think one of the issues at the hearing and in the emails has been the freedom of religion issue, and I do believe that this amendment does nothing to detract from freedom of religion. It still gives each individual the right to think and believe what he or she would like to believe. And I do think that it is important for us to do this. It is a sign that we are a caring community. We heard earlier this afternoon about how important that is. And I think that we have a responsibility to vote on this amendment, that it is our responsibility to consider all the issues and we did have the opportunity through hours of testimony to consider the issues fully. So I would like to thank everybody who participated in one way or the other. The public, whether they sent us emails or whether they called us or whether they came to testify or whether they just simply sat through the whole 7-hour hearing to find out what was going on. I think that's a wonderful sign for this community that people are willing to participate and want to participate. So thanks to all of you. I plan to vote for the amendment, by the way.
Doug?
Well, certainly last week's, even on the computer sitting in an airport, it was certainly an interesting 6 hours that I got to watch last week. I did catch the other hour on TV on Saturday because you never want to miss those kinds of things. It was a long hour, a long time, and I think people came and spoke to where they believed this city is and where they hoped it would go, and I think they realistically spoke from their heart. I think the danger that we have here is trying to not make this a referendum on lifestyle, because that's not what this is. At the end of the day, this is a really simple amendment that talks about whether you can be hired or not hired, fired or not fired, or denied housing because of who you live with or who you have a relationship with. Nothing more, nothing less. There were a lot of things thrown in over the last week, I think, that muddied the waters, perhaps, or maybe with an intent to incite some sensationalism or some emotion. That's in some ways very too bad, because I think we ought to keep it based on where we are. Before I'm through, I'd like to say I appreciate, Carl, you doing this. You've taken some abuse and on the blogs and some of those kinds of things. I think it's courage of conviction, whether anybody else thinks you're right or wrong. The courage to stand up and do what you believe is right is admirable. I'm not sure I have that kind of courage, so I appreciate that you did that. Finally, there's been a lot of talk about this ought to go to a vote of the people or it shouldn't go to a vote of the people, and frankly, we have a process. Let's run the process. We are doing it. I've heard people say, well, it's 7 people who are making the decision for everybody. That's why they call this a representative form of government. And when you say things like, I don't get to vote, you did get to vote. You went to the ballot box and you elected 7 people. If you don't like what they do, you have an obligation or an opportunity to go the next time they're up and change that. Having said that, there's a process. Let the process work. I intend to support this.
And I thank everyone so far. Maya, I just want to talk about the legality of it, because there's been a lot of discussion back and forth from a lot of different places about whether the City Council can do this or not. And I would applaud our City Attorney, Mr. Klon, for providing us a legal opinion, what I thought was an excellent legal opinion that said, yes, we can do this because that's our job. That's what we should do. And if somebody wants to carry the next step and go somewhere else as far as the put it on a ballot, that's fine. But the legal opinion says that we have the authority, and I think we have the ability to do this. I think it's important for us to do this, to step up and say that there should be fairness in the city of Lincoln for everyone. As Carl says, we want the city to be well known across the United States and the world, to say this is a very good city to come and live in. And I think it's important from the legal side to say that we follow the law, we follow our opinion of our city attorney, we listen to everyone. I want to thank everyone who came last week. It was very respectful for everybody. They showed up, they did their 5 minutes. It was a very good discussion from the community, and I want to thank the community for doing that. Whether which side you're on, I think it was important for the community to speak out. They did, and the council members are going to listen and vote their belief in what they want and what's important for the city of Lincoln, and I support the ordinance.
Any other discussion?
No, I do.
Yeah, John.
Okay, yeah. No, I'd like to equally thank everybody. I think there were sincere proponents of each side there and views brought forth. And actually I don't think there's a side either way. I would say that I did hear a resounding plea to put this to a vote of the people, and I really think that that should be the process.
Other comments? Okay. When I took office at the City Council, I swore an oath to support the Constitution of the state of Nebraska and to discharge my position in accordance with applicable law. In addition, as an attorney of the state of Nebraska, I have an obligation, and I took a similar oath when I became an attorney. This obligation to uphold the state constitution and state law is vital to the operation of a city, in my opinion, since our power derives from the people as exercised through the state of Nebraska. So it's important for us, in my opinion, to constantly be thinking about the state constitution as the source of our power in this state, and of course that comes from the people that's granted the state the power. As many know, the representative and legal officer of the state of Nebraska on all legal matters is the Attorney General's office. For right or for wrong, the office has the authority to enforce the laws of the state of Nebraska. Unfortunately, there are a lot of opinions, and a lot of attorneys can issue opinions, but when it comes to enforcement and interpretation of the state constitution, some opinions matter more than others. And in fact, as many also know, the Attorney General has issued an opinion stating that action by this body on this measure would be in violation of state law. Likewise, our own city attorney's office previously concluded that action on this type of measure required a public vote through a ballot measure rather than through city ordinance. As a result, participation in a vote on this measure, whether for or against, would be in clear violation of state law and our duties as members of this city council. I will be abstaining from this vote. Some will say that civil rights cannot be obtained via a ballot measure. I've heard that several times. I think not the least of which was Councilman Gray. However, in accordance with the Nebraska State Constitution and our charter, the existing protected classes that exist today, which include race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, were established by a public vote. Our charter has been amended to add those classes as protected classes in this city before. It happened in 1966. So for those that think that the only way to add protected classes in this city is through the city ordinance, it's not the case. In fact, it's not a lasting way to make change to our protected classes. The lasting way to make changes to our protected classes, and the method that has been used before effectively, is to work through the city charter. And in fact, the interpretations indicate that, and in my reading of the statutes indicate that that is clearly required to put it to a vote of the public. However, because of my duties and my oath, I think participation in this matter would be in violation of those duties and that oath, and so I will be abstaining. So we'll call the roll.
Point of order. Is that correct? I thought.
Yes.
Nope. Yes.
No.
I believe that he can abstain if he feels that he has a conflict.
The conflict is with the state constitution.
Okay. Eskridge?
Yes.
Shimmick?
Yes.
Camp?
Abstain.
Carroll?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Any other items, Joan?
Okay. The ordinances first reading are items 31 through 38. The resolution is 39. Pending list.
Cure for brain inflammation is turmeric. Cinnamon detangles the taut tangles that those with Alzheimer's get. Sprinkle turmeric and cinnamon sugar on food every meal and on the tongue for 5 years so you don't get the Alzheimer's disease of forgetfulness. Use a humidifier. This is important for city officials and the county health. Use humidifiers, heating pad, essential oils on the neck and plug-ins. Sip coconut oil or red palm oil. Have vitamin D and penicillin pills and cough drops for the throat. People don't get coughs in May. This summer cough may have originated in a germ factory. Read Judith Miller's factual book called Germs for more information. I want everyone to receive therapy. May has most altercations and most calls to hotlines for psychological help. The third Sunday of May can be Family Therapy Day. John Bruning received my letter in February stating the county attorney, Mr. Fair, did not prosecute Dr. Colsty for homicide of my mom. Dr. Colsty did not give a diagnosis for 10 months while my mom was in home health. Even in the grave, my mom did not have a diagnosis. John Bruning did not respond to my letter after 3 months. John Bruning does not state he cares for the weak of our country. Write in Mike Milken for United States Senator instead. Mike Milken wants to care for the weak in all hospitals and care for the weak said in all schools. As O Street gets repaired, a bike lane. Here's the bike lane picture. A bike lane can make bike riders safer. Bikers that have a lane next to the curb don't crash into cars coming from alleys and on streets. Consider this as a new zoning for bikes only. It'd be nice to have the Tea Party State Convention here in Lincoln on July 7th. We can offer a Saturday of sharing answers to problems, an open mic in the evening with speeches. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Anybody else like to speak on this item?
It's open. You can speak on anything.